Sarah Huckabee Sanders with an interesting statement today about the firing of James Comey. Let's discuss now CNN legal analyst Pate, Michael Moore, the former U.S. attorney for the Middle District of Georgia, CNN national security analyst Steve Hall, and CNN legal analyst Laura Coates. Good evening. Michael, you first. The White House said today that removing Comey from his post may hasten the agency's investigation into Russian meddling. Sarah Sanders Huckabee had this to say about the investigation.
We want this to come to conclusion. We want it to come to its conclusion with integrity, and we think that we've actually, by removing Director Comey, taken steps to make that happen.
Is it the place of the White House or the president to decide when this investigation is concluded?
No, it's not the place at all. And I tell you, we're living in a never land, I think, when you've got somebody who's under investigation who's now trying to call the shots about the investigation. I've listened to what the president said about Comey's assurances. That's in his letter that he sent to Comey. And I'll tell you, that makes no sense to me at all. Even if, and I don't believe it was said in the way that the president has related, but even if Comey made some reference about whether or not he was under investigation, it was an improper question to ask him. And these investigations continue to roll from one thing to the next. So while that may have been the case at the time, if it was, that doesn't mean that the next day something didn't come up which might put the president's conduct or someone close to him under the microscope.
And so here's that moment that you discussed there. President Trump admitting that he asked Comey if he was under investigation. Listen to this.
I actually asked him, yes. I said, if it's possible, would you let me know, am I under investigation? He said, you are not under investigation.
Every single person who watched that interview, that part, they were struck by that, Laura. It may not be illegal, I don't know, you're the legal expert, but was it ethical?
I don't think that it was. It was an inappropriate question for him to ask, and an inappropriate question if Comey actually answered it, and that's a big if. But really the real issue here is the timing of it, and we don't have the actual timing of that conversation. It matters. Remember, in March is when Comey came forward and said at a hearing that there actually was a criminal investigation into the Trump campaign and whether it colluded with Russia during the 2016 election. If that conversation that he asked that question at the dinner or the 2 phone calls that came after it happened before March, then arguably you could argue that, listen, he know there was an ongoing investigation and you missed an important link about obstruction of justice. If, however, it came after that, and of course it probably came a little bit before and after, then you have more of an inkling to say, listen, you knew there was an investigation. Did your question at the time he was looking to extend his tenure, did you hope to influence that decision? And did that have an impact ultimately? That's going to be the conundrum we're facing. What was the timing and what was your intent at that time? Here's
how you know that politics is involved, when there is this sort of disingenuity and that it's hypocrisy. Do you remember, Steve, when Bill Clinton met with Loretta Lynch on the plane? Everybody, Republicans and Democrats, said it was inappropriate, right? Now you have the President of the United States meeting with the Director of the FBI and admitting that he asked him if he was under investigation. Yet, Republicans in Washington, and I'm sure many around the country, are still standing up for him and not condemning it like they condemned the meeting with Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton on the plane.
This is one of the central problems that we're having, Don. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that, although I understand the administration's desire to have this investigation, be over with, there's no doubt that Comey's removal has slowed that down, and it is a question of perception and integrity. I mean, people are saying things like, the good people at the FBI, and there are lots of good ones, and I've worked with lots of good ones, we'll continue to work on this investigation regardless of, who's the director. And the bottom line is, while that's true, these people also have mortgages to pay, they got kids to put through college, they need the political top cover. And you were just mentioning, when politics gets involved. In this sense, it's a positive thing. They need an FBI director who is completely apolitical, who will protect them from the political winds so that they can counterintelligence investigation. That's the only way we're going to get to the bottom of this. Ironically, Comey, who was disliked by both sides of the aisle at various times, in today's polarized Washington, he's about the closest you can get to actually apolitical, and they've just gotten rid of him. So what's got to happen is the Republicans and the rest of Congress are going to have to make sure that whoever Donald Trump, who, by the way, is the guy who's being investigated, whoever he names is up to a very high standard, and that's whether the Republicans can actually come through and do that because they control it, right?
Yeah.
Then it'll be very interesting to see.
That's an interesting point because, as we say in this business, if you're ticking everybody off on every side, if people are mad at you on the left and the right and the middle, then you're doing something right.
It's a good sign.
In the press briefing today, the White House said that they want the Russia investigation to come to its conclusion with integrity. They say, here's what the president told NBC.
Oh, I was going to fire regardless of recommendation.
So there was
He made a recommendation. He's highly respected, very good guy, very smart guy. The Democrats like him, the Republicans like him. He made a recommendation, but regardless of recommendation, I was going to fire Comey, knowing there was no good time to do it. And in fact, when I decided to just do it, I said to myself, I said, this Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story. It's an excuse by the Democrats for having lost an election that they should have won.
So, Pate, I've heard some people say that this is the president confessing to obstruction of justice. What do you think?
Well, Don, I certainly think he's trying to put his thumb on this investigation. He wants somebody he can control in the position of FBI director, because I don't understand at all if the real reason to remove Comey is what he did in the Clinton investigation or what he said in the congressional hearing. Why also get rid of McCabe? Now, I did not expect the acting director of the FBI to actually make it through the hearing today, because it's clear from what he said he is independent, he's strong, and he is somebody who I think could run this investigation. But I understand that the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General are already looking for replacements for this guy, and he hasn't been on the job for a full week yet. So I don't know why we can't keep someone like McCabe in his position to allow him to continue to run the investigation, because if we cannot do that, the only way to have any credibility at all in this investigation is to appoint a special counsel. And if the Deputy Attorney General is the kind of guy that I hear that he is, I expect that he will eventually do that. He has no other choice.
Yeah, but isn't it their entire goal? It appears that they don't care about a credible investigation, especially if you look at what's happened with the investigation over time, from Nunes on and on and on. I mean, that doesn't seem to be the party's goal. The president says it's his goal, but his actions contradict that.
Don, they want it over with. That's certainly true, no question about it. And they want it over with without anybody being charged. And the best way for them to do that is to keep someone that they control in the decision-making position. So if the Deputy Attorney General now decides to start looking into this case individually or independently, Trump can remove him. And he's shown that he'll remove people in that position because he's done it in the past. I think the only way for this investigation to have any credibility, the only way for this administration to move on to other things, is to have somebody from the outside sit down, get the resources that they need, and be independent.
Let me just say,
hang on, can you hold that to the other side of the break? When we come out, I'll get to you, Laura. When we come right back, the acting director of the FBI contradicting the White House in his first public appearance today. We'll discuss that and more.